Whether or not you're into emo, post-hardcore or Midwest emo, these genres are packed with unique chords and ideas you can learn and apply to any style of writing. Broadly speaking, many of these bands rely on more than just simple power chords, and over time, these sounds have become closely associated with certain styles of emo. Open tunings are also common, especially in Midwest emo and more math rock leaning styles. But for this video, I'll keep everything in standard tuning for simplicity's sake. One key sound in some of these styles comes from using cleaner, deconstructed chords, allowing for quick movement around the fretboard and creating that polished, mathy sound. While a lot of this is done in open tunings, it's easy to apply in standard tuning too. To do this, let's start with a typical bar chord. Take a D major bar chord for instance, and start by removing some of the unnecessary notes. In this case, you could drop the 5th on the D string and its octave on the high E. The 5th isn't really doing much to add any colour to the sound of the D major here, which is why it's a good one to remove first. This leaves just the root, its octave and a third, creating a simple, movable shape while reducing any muddiness which can be created by lower thirds, fifths and so on. And if you lower the third by 1 fret, you get the minor equivalent. For an even more stripped back sound, just play the lower root note and third. This is something you'll often hear being done in a lot of J-rock music. Using just 2 or 3 of these simple shapes, you can start creating great chord progressions right away. To take this idea one step further, an easy way to make these partial chords more dissonant is by adding a droning note. Open strings help ground your progressions and make bigger jumps between frets feel more natural by using the open string as a pedal tone. A simple way to do this with the chord shape I just showed you is to leave the G string open instead of fretting the octave of the root note. Now you have the root, an open G and a third. Like with the previous shape, this one is fully movable across the fretboard, but with the added benefit of extra dissonance, which may or may not be what you're after, depending on the sound you want. One final variation I find really useful with this shape is when you want to keep that strong power chord sound but add a bit more colour to it. Instead of removing the 5th, you bring it back in, then the colour comes from adding the 3rd as well. The colour note doesn't have to stay static either. These shapes are a great way to add a little melody while still filling the role of the rhythm guitar. Try picking 2 or 3 of these chord shapes, then move the colour note up or down the fretboard to add some catchiness to your progression. Another key element of this sound is using shell voicings, where you strip a chord down to its essential notes and play a more scaled down version. My favourite approach is using 7th shell voicings, which are very similar to the shapes we've already covered. Going back to the basic shape with just the root, octave and third, to turn this into a D major 7, all you need to do is drop the octave down by a half step. For the minor equivalent, simply lower both the fretted G and B string notes by a half step. Like before, this shape is fully movable across the fretboard, making it easy to string together progressions. The best approach is to mix everything we've covered in this video, even blending these with basic cowboy chords to create more unique and complex progressions. If you're really struggling to create chord progressions from scratch, check out my guide to making your own complex chords entirely by ear.